Hey, all right. Welcome, everybody. I think there might be some attendees who are still in transit from the panelist or from the when I turned the webinar on, but I am going to get us started with with roll call. Um, and I'm just going to go through this. So when I call your name, just unmute yourself and say, let me know that you're present. So I am here. Commissioner Kensek, I believe, is running a little bit late, but he should be coming. Um, Jason Bello. Karen Brueggemann.
Here.
Fabulous. Frank Chauvin.
Here.
Aaron Pervin. Karen Gall.
Present.
Wonderful. Brad Solion.
Here.
And also tell me if I'm saying your name wrong.
No, that's great.
Um,
Thank you.
okay, fabulous. Joel Heisey.
Here.
Yan Yuhong.
Here.
Patrick Nelson.
Present.
Daniel Kramer. No. Alex told me he was not going to be able to make it. Bruce Flippins. Devin Reed.
Here.
And Gabriel Gassman.
Here.
Okay, fabulous. So, some of you may have noticed there are some new names. There continue to be new names, which is really exciting. So I have two new committee members that have been appointed, and then one who we appointed last meeting, but was enjoying not being on somewhere else. I don't know if it was a vacation or not, but we'll start with. I should have had this in a different order, but we'll start with Gabriel Gassman. If you could just introduce yourself real quick and say hello, and
Hi,
let people know what
yeah,
your
I'm
background is.
Gabriel. I think I was the one who was appointed last time, but was on
Yes.
vacation. Yeah, I'm in 1B6 on Chapin Street. And yeah, really excited to learn what you guys do and get involved. I am a lawyer and work in affordable housing, and I'm excited to sort of be getting involved in the community in this way. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And then also, just really quickly, I see Commissioner Kenzuk, you have your hand raised. Let me just really quickly um, promote you. Okay. Um, if that didn't work, Commissioner Kenzuk, just let me know. But I think that should be fine. Um, and I will mark you as present. Okay, so next on our um, appointments, it's the appointment of Brad Solian. So Brad, if you would just be willing to introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit about what your interest in the committee is.
Sure. So, hi, everyone. I've been living in Ward 1 since I moved to DC 13 years ago. Originally from Pennsylvania, but I lived in Miami before moving to DC. I was formerly a teacher, but I changed careers, and I'm chief of staff for a member of Congress now. And While I don't have a background in a lot of these things, I have a lot of background in federal policy for infrastructure, housing, and other things. So I hope I can use that experience towards this and then get involved more in the community.
Awesome. Welcome. And I am now just recalling that Aaron is also on vacation today. So we will introduce him next time. Um, oh, and I see, Jason, that you are here. Thanks so much. So our first item on the agenda, let me just make sure I have Jason. There we go. First item on the agenda is the an application for 2008 17th Street Northwest. I believe we have members for that application in the attendees in the audience. If you are here, could you please raise your hand and I will promote you to be able to speak. Okay. I see Mr. Solomon. All right, Mr. Solomon, you should have just gotten a promotion request. Fabulous. All right. So Mr. Solomon, normally how we do this, I don't know if you've been in front of a uh ANC before, but normally how we do this is that we ask that you share a little bit about the project. I do have the application documents available if you would like for me to share those. But what I would hope for you to do now is share a little bit about the project, walk through the information, the sort of most relevant information for it, share any information that you have received from HBO staff regarding the application, and then be stick around to answer some questions from the committee members.
Sure. This is a application for a renovation of 2008 17th Street Northwest, which is currently a end unit row house. Not sure if
Before
I
you
could.
continue, do you want me to share the uh
Yes,
the
please.
plans, or do you have them available?
I have it available if you want me to share it.
Yes, that'd be fabulous. Thank you.
It's disabled. My share is disabled.
Oh God. Okay. This always happens, and I can never remember. I don't know why actually this is the case, but I'm gonna make you co-host. Um, and that sometimes seems to work. Okay, fabulous.
So, this end unit row house is what we're discussing today, which is 2008 17th Street. It's we're proposing for a interior complete renovation and a 8 foot 4 rear addition to this existing row house, and we're converting it from a single family residence to 2 units. Uh, it's currently mostly above grade, cellar, first floor, second floor, and third floor. So we're not going to add any. There will be no additions vertically, but there will be a rear wall demolition and addition, which is an 8 foot 4 space for a bedroom, and stairs, 6 foot 2 stairs for egress. The Here are some pictures that we have submitted as part of the application to HBO.
Great.
Here's some rear view pictures. And we've also added some exterior pictures. The addition will not be visible from the street at all.
Great.
Here's some views of the existing rear. We're essentially trying to do an addition similar to the adjacent property as shown next to it here. And then with the stairs, 2 level stairs in the back. Here's the existing footprint, which is essentially 41 feet existing with an areaway. This
This
is what's existing now.
great.
So we're
That's what I was
proposing
going to
to
ask.
demo this rear wall and create a new addition, which is shown here. Should be the 8 foot 4 plus these stairs. And here's a view. Here's a view of the final proposed structure. which is shown here in white, but this is just for illustration. We haven't picked the final color yet. Essentially, that's the project. Um, I'll go
Great.
back to the floor plans just so you can see what it is. We're creating one unit in the first two levels, and the second unit would be in the second and attic here. So as you enter the building, you'd go into the first unit to the right, and the second unit would be straight to the front with the second door, as you can see here. The first unit will have 4 bedrooms, and the second unit will have 4 bedrooms as well. So that's essentially the project, straightforward and simple.
Great. I do have one quick question for you, and that is, have you had the opportunity yet to get in contact with any of the abutting properties?
Uh, we have not. We were going to reach out to them. We'll be sending out these drawings once I get any comments from you, and any additional comments from Anne. We've pretty much got all the comments from Anne at the HBO. So these are basically those. So we'll be printing them and sharing it with all the neighbors.
Okay. Um,
We have put the posting on the front door.
okay, sounds good. And then one other question, I'm sure this is other committee members do also have additional questions, but can you give a quick summary of what feedback you've received to date from Anne at HPO?
Well, initially we had proposed to extend the rear all the way to the top level. As you can see here, we were proposing to extend the roof out as well, I mean to the attic level, but she proposed that we should just keep it to the match the neighbor, and that's what we did.
Great. Okay. Is there anything before I turn it over to committee members for questions? Is there anything, Mr. Solomon, anything else that you wanted to add?
No.
Cool. Okay, so I see we have Joel, your question, and then I also see I'm assuming Commissioner Holden in the audience who has a question. So I'll start with committee and then we'll go to attendees. So Joel, why don't you get us started?
Are you proposing any work in the front?
We're essentially replacing the windows and doors to, we'll work with Anne to see what she recommends and prefers. And we'll point up some brick and probably paint it. But other than that, we're not doing any major work. And there will not be any major utility work, I don't think, for this renovation.
Okay, so in other words, you will be following HPO guidelines for windows and doors treatment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, are you doing anything with the front yard or the fencing?
No.
Okay, any fencing in the back?
No.
Okay, and is this otherwise, except for the historic portions, is it all by right?
It's all by right. There's no BZA requirement.
Okay, just wanted to kind of check. I don't have any real issues with this. I'm glad you didn't go up the fourth level in the back. I think that looks much better, preserving the dormer windows and the height of the roof line up there.
Yeah, that was Anne's recommendation as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's all. That's all I have anyway.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. Okay, Devin, you are
Yeah.
next.
Thank you. Good evening. So a couple questions following on from Joel regarding the front. Since you're splitting this now into two separate units, will there be the addition of any sort of like mailbox or anything like that that splits packages or mail between the two units, or will that be expected to just be handled at the top of the stairs or inside?
I think just for the two units, they can just slide it, or we can. We haven't really. We don't want to put anything on the exterior.
Okay.
Uh, we might just put a small mailbox inside the door.
Okay. And then my second question, looking at your application in section 3, question 4, I believe, does the project include removal of roof or floor framing or load-bearing walls? You seem to be demolishing almost every single wall inside the structure that exists now, plus the back wall. Would you mind walking us through the steps you've got in mind to just ensure stability? Are you working with engineers? What does that process look like for you?
Yes, I am a structural engineer, by the way.
Mhm.
But yes, we are demoing the interior essentially completely. We will be bracing the existing perimeters. The location of the stair has been revised so that essentially the joists are going left to right. Uh, but we are relocating the stairs and demoing pretty much all the walls inside. So we will try to keep the joists if it's possible, uh, where possible, because it appears the existing floor is in good shape. The building has not been damaged much, but the walls will be disappearing. But the stair will be moved. So about approximately 50% of the joists will be removed. Will have to be removed to make this configuration work. But
Yeah, and
we will keep as much as possible the existing joists because the ceiling heights are essentially going to stay the same. The heights work for our purpose,
mhm,
um, and the building appears to be in good condition overall. So I don't see much water damage. So yes, we will try to keep as much as possible, but we will have to remove approximately 50% of the joists because of the relocation of the stair.
mhm. And are you going to kind of like triage the bracing? Will you demolish and rebuild floor by floor, or are you planning an entire, just completely gut it? And
No,
if
no.
so, what is the,
The
yeah.
the existing stair will be removed initially, which is approximately 7 feet.
Mhm.
So floor by floor, those joists would be replaced, and then we will continue to demo for the new stair as needed. But it will be done in sections, so there will be, it's a means and methods, but that's the intent is
Yep.
to make sure there's no damage to the existing brick.
No further questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Devin. Okay, Commissioner Kensek, you are next.
Thanks. Hi, Mr. Solomon, thanks for joining us. Question for you. Do you own this property?
No, the owner, Frank, I'm not sure is on the call.
There is someone named Frank, but I don't know if it's the Frank in question.
Frank Nickel is the owner.
Yes, that would be
Yes,
him.
Okay.
he's
Whenever I
available.
hear 50% of joists is being removed, always concerns me, but I know it can be done. Uh, Beside yourself as a structural engineer, are you actually representing the owners then as the structural engineer of the property?
Yes, I am.
And to Chair's point earlier in regards to letting the neighbors know, I know you're dealing with Anne, which is great, and that's you're being very proactive. But I do think that it's a good idea to make sure that your neighbors are really well informed due to
Definitely,
the.
yes.
I'm sorry, sir.
Definitely, it's a requirement for the building permit as well. So we will be notifying all neighbors.
That's great. There's a lot of requirements in DC people don't do, but I appreciate that. Okay, that's all I have.
Um, okay, great. Any other commissioner or excuse me, committee member questions before I turn it over to the public? Okay. I don't see any, so I'm going to go to Commissioner Holden, I'm assuming.
Um, Hi, everyone.
Great.
Matthew Holden here, the SMD from 1B07, where the project is. And also, my fence is probably 8 feet from the property in question. Um, but mostly just maybe one or two questions, but mostly I just wanted to voice like general support for the application. I think the only change being the addition um, on the rear is pretty good. It'll stay consistent with the buildings around and not be too much change for people. Um, and the existing house, is pretty old and has been a single family house for a long time, and uh, honestly would need work for it was recently sold and it needs work for like a new family or new families to move in. So I'm happy that this is happening kind of like hopefully like swiftly and won't like lag on too long. So my main question is, once we've gotten through permitting and everything's kind of approved, how long do you think the project would take from like demolition through finishing out construction?
Uh, Frank would know better, but I would say about 6 months is my guess. 4 to 6 months.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And Commissioner Holden, did you have another question?
No, I think
Okay,
that's all.
great. Patrick, I see your hand is up.
Two things. There was a question in the Q&A that
Yes.
the attendees put in, which is, uh, uh, what is the plan to retain or keep the parking spaces behind? And then my other question is, what is the plan for storage and retention of garbage cans and trash cans?
Here's the rear view of the site. I don't know if you can see it. So we have two parking, and we would be locating the trash cans in the corner of the stair on the opposite side where you can enter the stairs, and then move them out as needed for a pickup.
Well, that
Great.
means based on the picture that I saw before, there were two cars parked there. You're just going to keep those two spaces. They're not going away.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Um, Commissioner Kensek, was that your, did that
Yeah,
answer your
no,
question?
no, it did partially, but I did want to follow up on Commissioner Holden's point earlier too with the construction. We know that we have a couple projects coming up the pipeline with Reeves and also with the 1617, 1620 U and V Street. So it would be helpful if we do get a time frame as to when this is expecting and duration of the job. That would be really helpful.
We will be submitting the permit shortly, and I anticipate that will be 3 to 5 months, maybe. Then it will be a 6 month construction period approximately after that. So, uh, talking about May start, April, May start, and November end, probably something like that.
Great. It does, that is a good point, Commissioner Kensek, because there's lots of construction. I would be very surprised if 1617 starts anytime in that time frame. But it is so it doesn't sound like there will be much of an overlap, which is good. Um, the other thing I just forgot to mention, because this was actually sent over the weekend, is that the DuPont Circle Conservancy also reviewed this case, and What they said was the DuPont Circle Conservancy supports the project as presented. We expect that the historic preservation guidelines will be followed with regard to facade, doors, windows, and roof materials and elements. Um, and that was approved unanimously. So I thought I would add that as well. Um, all right. Any other comments from committee members?
A quick, Chris,
Yes, Frank. And then Patrick.
I'm sorry, Christian. I just wanted you to clarify what you just read. Is this the DuPont Circle Historic District or is this the U Street Historic District? And I'm just curious about that point regarding that
Yeah.
conservancy.
Yeah, so this is the Stryver Historic District, actually, um, which is very small. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what the boundaries are of it, but I think that it's mostly Seaver Street and 17th. Um, so obviously, not very many buildings are part of it, which is why we don't really see a lot of cases out of there. But I'll share my screen really quickly. So I'm just going to replace your share. Um, but the Conservancy, the DuPont Circle Conservancy, is the organization that I was mentioning earlier. They reviewed two cases. One is not in our ANC, but you can see this. They did it. They reviewed it on November 11th, um, and I'm not entirely. I actually didn't wasn't familiar with the DuPont Circle Conservancy. Um, but this is in the official HPRB folder for this, and I'm just sharing it as some additional context.
I
So,
appreciate that. Thank
yeah,
you for the clarification.
of course. Um, okay, any additional questions or Well, Patrick, you had something you were going to add.
I was just going to ask, when is this scheduled for hearing in December?
Yes.
Right, thanks.
Okay. Do I hear a motion with regard to this application? Any takers?
I'd like to make a motion that the full ANC support. I would like to make a motion that we recommend that the full ANC support this application. I need to number.
The number is HPA 2655.
HPA 2665 with the renderings that was presented and also with the notation that it was received the support of the community and the commissioner of record. Thank you.
Okay. So that is a motion from committee member Karen Gall, and that is I motion that the ZPD recommend the full ANC support the application for HPA 2555 2008 17th Street as presented. There was something else that I missed that you said at the end.
I said, what knowing with the engagement, the community, just with a special notation that it also had the engagement of the community and the support of the commissioner on record.
Great. Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Awesome. Okay. Vote time. All those in favor, please raise your virtual Zoom hand. Okay. Okay, it is unanimous, but I am just going to write, don't lower your hands yet. I'm just going to write everybody's names down. So,
From Mr. Hong, Mr. Gassman, myself. Miss Karen, Miss Karen too, Mr. Solomon, or Brad, I'm sorry, I don't want to say that, Mr. Frank, Joel, Evan, Jason.
Okay. I think I got everybody. Anyone opposed? Lower your hand. Okay. I'm assuming Karen, you are not opposed.
No, I'm not
Okay.
opposed. I lowered my hand.
Yes. Well, oh, Karen Brueggemann. Sorry, there's two Karens. And abstaining. Okay. Only me. Awesome. Congratulations, Mr. Solomon. So basically, what will happen now is that I will draft a letter of support that we will share with the full commission. The full commission's next meeting is December 4th. Hopefully Commissioner Kenzig will correct me if that is not the right date. I think that it is the 4th. It's the first Thursday of the month. It starts at 6:30. Great, that is correct. And so basically what will happen is that you will be on the agenda for that, and the full commission will vote on the letter of support. Um, Most of the time, what I will say is that the commission does not necessarily need to hear from property owners or proponents for this, but you should be on the meeting just in case. Um, so I will make sure to provide that information to you later this week, just so that you have that. But that is the process. And then once that letter, if the full commission adopts the letter of support, then that will be added to your HPRB file, just like the conservation letter.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Next on Patrick, you have your hand up.
I want to make a quick comment before we move
Yes.
into any other business since Alan brought it up. I'm not sure if you've seen this or not, Christian, but HPO has released a raised permit for the Reeve Center. So that's the step one in the process.
For the what, sorry?
For the Reeves Center.
Indeed.
Long awaited, finally moving forward.
I did see that. And I did, in fact, look at that and I thought, huh, so interesting. I haven't heard anything about this. And I inquired about it, and it turns out, according to, I don't remember which commissioner, I think Commissioner Fay followed up with this. It turns out that the developer is working on multiple projects in the district and submitted it erroneously for the Reeves Center and meant to submit it for a different building. So the Reeves Center is continuing to live
Oh,
in the
geez.
way that it is, and that is not actually a raised permit for it.
Well, that's a bummer. I thought we were finally moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yes, yes, yes. I was excited, but then but I also was like, that's so interesting. I feel like we would have, if we were moving towards a raised permit application, I feel like we would have heard something about it. But um anyway, so no excitement there quite yet. But my understanding from some of the Economic Development Committee meetings, and I'm sure there's some Economic Development Committee members who are on this committee who could talk about this. Um, but my understanding is that when that moves forward, there is very likely to be zoning related stuff um, for it. And so I'm sure we will be seeing it in front of our committee. And then for those of you who are not familiar, the Reeves Center is the big municipal building on the corner of 14th and U, where there used to be that post office. Yeah, it's quite large. And now it's sort of weirdly underutilized and has random offices in it. So
Funny how you described it as the old post office building.
that's what I think about it as.
Actually vacant now. They finally have moved everything out of it, so it's just sitting.
Yes.
That's why when I saw that, I was like, "Wow, we're finally moving in the right direction here." But I shouldn't have kept my hopes up too high, knowing how Denped does here.
Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is the Cools Act, and we are going to be joined by somebody from sorry, every position here starts with a C, from Council Member Henderson's office. Councilmember Henderson was the person who who introduced this legislation. However, that person is not here yet. And so what I would like to do is start a discussion of the resolution urging gentle density throughout the District of Columbia. And then when this person joins the meeting, we sort of put a pause on that conversation and start the Cools Act conversation. Just because she told me she was joining at 7:15, and so we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. Um, so I believe I sent this out earlier today, but Commissioner Barrio is unfortunately not able to be with us today. Um, but I wanted to quickly give a little bit of background on this, just because I know we have some new committee members, and there's been the resolution has sort of been shopped around to a couple of different committees, and it's also been in front of the full commission, and so there's a little bit of, I think, dot connecting that I want to do first, and then we can. I have a proposal for how we should approach reviewing this that I would like to run by all of you. So, really quickly, believe you all have this in your email. So, but this is a resolution that first came before the ZPD in, I want to say, July or August. We reviewed it then. We reviewed the first iteration of it then and provided some feedback, and then it came back to us the following month, and we reviewed it again and provided some additional feedback. Um, in addition to coming in front of ZPD, Commissioner Barrio had this resolution come in front of the Economic Development Committee. And then after all of that, he implemented some changes and updates to the resolution. And it was in front of the full ANC at at November's ANC meeting. Um, at both times that it was in front of ZPD and the one time it was in front of the Economic Development Committee, neither committee voted on it. We just provided feedback as members, committee members. And then when it was in front of the commission also did not, well, the commission voted to table it to discuss at a later date, pending some additional commissioner review. My understanding is that review has happened with at least a handful of commissioners who are interested. And that is the result of that is the updated resolution that I sent out earlier today. So, there's been a lot of changes made to this um, over the course of the last couple of months. And my understanding, based on what Commissioner Barrio said at the last full ANC meeting, is that his intent is to bring this to the commission in December, at the December meeting. So that was his intent in September, or sorry, in November. And as far as I know, that hasn't changed. And so the one of the reasons why I added it to our agenda today is because it has been updated. And I think it would be helpful for us to review. Um, in terms of providing feedback, Commissioner Barry has not asked for a vote on this, and so I have a suggestion in order to sort of like efficiently manage the feedback on this from all of us because it is a complicated topic. Um, and so what my suggestion is that we review this, we sort of discuss it as a committee, and we can share thoughts with each other, and then I will collect sort of statements of support or not support or whatever from all of you and compile those as feedback from committee members and then submit that to the commission so that the commissioners will have access to that document when they're considering this at December or a future commission meeting. So if that sounds good to all of you, I think that is probably the most straightforward approach, especially because Commissioner Barrio is not able to join us today. Karen.
Is there a deadline? I noticed you said you want to do it have it ready for the December's meeting. So we will review it, give you our feedback. Do you have a particular date so that we can have it ready to you?
That's a great question. I think it would be great to have it because I know that we're coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday, so I'm sure all of us are going to be doing other things besides reading this resolution. Um, but I think it would be great to have feedback from like your sort of submitted feedback um, from you by I'm looking at the calendar. Um, if it's the fourth agenda, we like to publish it a week in advance, which would be Thursday, actual the day of Thanksgiving. If you could share feedback by sort of the end of the day on Monday, the 24th, I think that would be good. And then of course, if that doesn't happen, I think that's probably fine, but just in the spirit of making sure that our feedback gets into the agenda and to the documents relevant to it. Um, Having comment by in a week from today, I think would be helpful. Does that sound reasonable?
A week from today, okay, okay, I can put it on my schedule. But
I'll send out an email reminder too, of
right.
course, so that
Okay,
we
I
know.
just wanted to know and just how ro how robust should we be with our feedback?
I think that is up to you, I would
Okay.
say. You can be as robust as your heart desires. I do think that just for um, probably pithier is better, just out of interest of making sure the commissioners have the ability to like actually reasonably like read feedback on it. Um, But I think that that's really up to you. I obviously will not be editing any feedback. I'll just be compiling it. So whatever
Yeah,
you want to
because I
say.
mean, I would like to, because this is being shopped out to get more community input. You know, I would like to be able to push it through my circles to see if there's anyone who has anything that they can offer to this as well. So that's the reason why I'm asking.
Oh, that makes sense. I think that there is a version of it. Um, uh, I'll make sure that I'll see if Commissioner Barrio has one that is uh before you shop it out, let me just make sure that that he's not making additional changes to it. I haven't heard anything about that, but I will check with him later tonight just to make sure that the version that we have is the one that he is okay with people seeing. Just
Well,
because
if it's just committee wide, then I'll look at it myself. Then don't if it's
that
just
might be the
committee wide.
easiest approach, and then that way, if there are mostly because I just want to be respectful of Commissioner Barrio since he's not here, so I can't ask him if he wants it to be shopped around to the broader
Okay,
community, if that's
that's
okay with
good.
you.
That's fine. I just figured that he wanted some real input, and
Yes,
I heard
I'm
because you
expecting that to
guys
be the
had a
case.
little bit of a pushback from the last meeting, and I wanted to make sure that we were giving him something that was much more
Yes.
insightful. That's all.
I
Thank
think
you.
I'm assuming, Karen, that that is the case with Commissioner Barrio, but I can't. I mean, just because he's not here, I don't want to speak for him, obviously.
I got you. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, Patrick.
So it's safe to assume that we're not going to make suggestions of things that tonight. We're supposed to look at this and submit them to you at a later date. Is that what you're
I
saying?
think yes, that is generally the case. What I would suggest though is that if you have if there's questions that we have about the resolution that we would want to ask, like sort of throw out to the committee about either a component of it or a concern that we have that we want to discuss, now would be the time to discuss that.
Because that's why I'm asking this question. Because I read through this whole thing today, and there's some ambiguity that I think needs to be clarified, and I want to make sure that those members here can understand what my questions are. So do you want me to do those
Yeah,
or
why not? And just I haven't seen the new I haven't seen our next guest in the audience yet. So
okay,
why don't
so
you go ahead?
I'm just going to scroll down and look at um, the items that I see. I and some of this is just questionable how I read it. Not that there's a real issue with it, but one of the things he talks about here is um, well, if we go down to the one, two, three, four,
I'm going to share my
fifth,
screen in just a
fifth,
sec.
whereas he's talking about exclusionary zoning, which I don't understand why he keeps using that word, but that's another issue. Perpetuates racial and economic segregation in the district by walling off wealthy neighborhoods from residents and pushing growth to risk displacement in less affluent areas. I think that, from my standpoint, he doesn't need to state that it's wealthy neighborhoods. He could say walling off neighborhoods and talking about not hitting other areas. It sounds a little, to me, nasty that he's pointing out less affluent versus wealthy. That's my first comment. Um, and then he's talking about, I'm trying to find the right word he keeps using here. He keeps saying in multiple places, infill conversions. And I'm not sure why he is using the word conversions if he's talking about infilling and putting additional housing. Conversions means that he's converting something that's already there. And based on what he was saying in previous meetings, he wants to use the vacant land that's not being used to put housing on. So I don't know why he's using the word infill conversions. And then he talks about in a couple of these that it's 4 units, but then down at the bottom, he goes from 4 units to multiplexes up to 6 units. So is it 4 or is it 6?
You're talking about this one?
Oh, hold on a second. Uh,
When you finish, Patrick, I have a lot of things to follow on what you're saying too.
Yes, and also I did just to note that our next guest is in the audience. Um,
okay, so we can go to her if you want, and then we can back.
yeah, is that okay with you, Patrick and Joel?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then we can return. Okay, awesome. Okay, I'm going to promote.
Can we also email Francois our questions too?
Yes, absolutely. Happy for you to email Commissioner Barrio your questions. I do want to compile them though, so if they're the same ones you want to send me, then then please definitely send me those. And I will um make sure that those make it into our compilation document. Um, okay, so we have a guest in our audience, and that is Ms. Rogoff from Councilmember Henderson's office. Um, for those of you who joined us at our last meeting, we reviewed the Cools Act, and then we also reviewed a resolution that was submitted or that was adopted by ANC 1D. And then based on our conversation, I've drafted our own sort of companion resolution. But we wanted to hear from staff from the council member's office about the resolution and how it originated and what the purpose of it is and sort of what the main points are. And then we wanted to be able to ask questions. So we have Ms. Rogoff here. So if you wouldn't mind giving us a quick orientation to the Cools Act, that would be great.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm Gabrielle. You can call me Gabrielle, don't have to call me Miss Christian.
Okay.
I'm Councilmember Henderson's legislative director. Been with her for just over 4 years now, covering a variety of topics, but as pertains to this one, like the T&E space, transportation and environment. So I think we drafted this initially in 2023. I think we had gotten hit with like a really, really hot spell early in the spring. And so a lot of people were writing to the council asking us to do something about it, citing to regulations that said that, well, what they thought was a law actually, but it turns out it was regulations that said that heat cannot be turned off until May 1st, um, which turned out to be the case because the building code regulations have not been updated. The 2017 update didn't really address like indoor heating and cooling, and the updated regulations that are currently pending have been pending for far longer than they were supposed to. So, in the absence of like leadership by the Construction Codes Board, we decided to just go ahead and update the regulations through the legislative process. It's not best practice, but challenging times call for, leadership in some areas. So we introduced a version 2023 that was, if you look at the legislative text, I don't know if anyone's gone that far into like looking at what we've written. The draft to the first bill looks a lot different than the second bill. And that's because we were told at the hearing, like we had amended the wrong regulations. The regulations we'd amended in the first go around were no longer used. We had to amend a different set of regulations that we then, found and amended in the second bill. Um, they also differ a little bit in terms of scope too. I don't even remember exactly what the proposal is for the first one off the top of my head, but the one we have now is still overall written with the goal of like recognizing that climate change is making our city hotter sooner and warmer for longer. And so changing the kind of period of the year during which AC is required to be longer. So I believe right now the I'm looking at the bill to see if I did a wholesale strike and replace. Oh yeah, okay. So right now heat has to be provided through May 1st, no exceptions. If your apartment building provides heat, we change that to April 1st. And then right now you have to provide heat through, I believe, September 30th. I mean, cool AC through September 30th, and then you have to turn over to heat. We're proposing pushing it back by a month or by 15 days, I think. So by October 15th, you'd have to have it's the earliest you could turn the heat on, and it has to be turned no later than, I believe, October 31st. Um, so we're just simply trying to respond to what people are experiencing in our city, especially people who live in like the two stack buildings that they don't control within their own unit, the provision of heat or air conditioning. And so this really only applies to them. And then I think the initial bill we had proposed this like energy offset grant program to basically encourage buildings that have the really old two pipe system, once a year on off heating cooling to upgrade their infrastructure to be more adaptive and like to the system that the tenants could control within their unit. That'd be really expensive, and the city doesn't have a lot of money right now, and so we're trying to be a little bit more conscious of working with what we have rather than trying to do a wholesale you know, changeover. It was optional, but we were wary of creating the expectation that people could take on massive infrastructure costs and the city could pay for it when we don't really think that's possible. Um, so that is what I would share up front. And then, yes, I'm happy to take questions. I'm also really glad you're considering supporting this. And I think it's great timing because the chairman still has to hold a hearing on this bill. And we are actually getting closer and closer to the time where we're going to be needing to talk about air conditioning again.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabrielle. Do any committee members have questions for Gabrielle? Yes, Commissioner Kensek.
Yeah, real quickly, what is the main objective for the councilwoman's purpose of pushing this?
Well, like I said, just recognizing that there are aspects of like living in an apartment building where you don't control your own environment that is really uncomfortable. And it's like really the only thing restraining landlords from, being more responsive is that regulations actively require you to keep heat on until May 1st. Which is just like, it's really hot in April at this point. And if the only impediment toward people being comfortable and landlords being able to help them be comfortable are regulations, then we just need to change that in recognition of how things have changed.
And that's fair. And so is the environment and everything else with the heat and all that good stuff. But the universal dates typically for any type of changeover for any building, commercial or residential, typically mostly commercial, but would be like April 15th through October 15th. Those are, it's hot, cold days that universally gone. Here in DC, they actually do push it around May for some reason. I'm not really sure. Where, New York and other states I've worked to is always April. But how will that impact some of the also landlords' controls? Because, these aren't like on a BMS system. A lot of these are per unit. There could be a lot of work that has to be involved in order to do this. So is it going to be pushed back on the tenants who are currently paying their rent, who ultimately all falls on all of us as taxpayers. How is this going to be planned to in terms of monies and allocations to be able to get this done and ensure that the not only the people that are living in these places have the proper heating and cooling they need, but also the landlords aren't going to be having some outrageous bill that they have nothing to go back or default on, that they're going to be expected then just to cost out of their own pocket.
Sure. So, you're right that this is like a pretty labor-intensive process. I lived in one of these buildings, so like I was a tenant that like had to, get my floor scheduled for this like
Yeah.
turnover. I mean, cost-wise, I don't expect this to have any impact beyond what people currently pay for this service that is required by law anyway, because we're just bumping up the timeline. We're not saying like do it differently. We're not saying don't, we're not changing service provision. It's just changing the t date at which the service has to be provided.
Oh, that's fair. Thank you.
Mhm.
Karen.
Good afternoon. Well, good evening, Gabrielle. It's Karen Gall. Look, we had a nice conversation about this last month, and one of the questions that I brought through was you were talking about infrastructure, and of course, there are some medically fragile or medically, I want to say some people may be challenged that they need to have heat and heat at certain times of the year that may precede the time that you're talking about. And I was just wondering if there is any provisions that you all were interested in adding to this particular act that would help for residents who may be medically fragile and or for whatever medical issues that would help to support them, in spite of the fact that yes, you did say that there was some infrastructure issues and you don't think that some people need to take on those costs, but they need those accommodations. Do you think that it's possible to have a provision within this act to sort of work with the community that has that particular need, who cannot really fend for themselves in these particular situations for the most part?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So this is not a concern that I've heard yet, and I'm glad you're raising it.
We discussed it last month, but I didn't want you to overlook it because it's
Oh,
really,
I
really
wasn't
important.
here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
It's okay. So yeah, this is my first time. I mean, I'm wondering, could you share, like, Karen, do you think right now the way that the turnover, the once a year turnover to heating and cooling is similarly disadvantaging the medically fragile community, like, folks? Like, how do you see that playing out right now?
Well, I've seen I'm not trying to really, like, say for instance, if there are people who may have hormonal challenges
Mhm.
and they really want to have some adjustments, and sometimes these particular dates really does pitch into they need to have their AC on or they need to have the heat on. um they may suffer from, and I'm gonna give you a syndrome, Renard syndrome to be exact, which people's their limbs start to get cold and they really do need to have the heat on at particular times, and they need to have some help to have some controls over their heating system. I'm just giving you one medical issue that
Mhm.
could possibly be the case. You could even talk about women who may be going through menopause. You could talk about a lot of different issues that can come under those factors where temperature controls are really important to our community. So, and I know that the councilwoman, she's in charge of the health committee. So I know that that's really important to her. So I'm just looking at ways in which there could be some type of assistance for those people. I spoke to our architect on staff here for this committee, who we were talking about the infrastructure costs of these particular adjustments that landlords have to go through, and that's a really heavy cost. However, um, the landlord doesn't want to take it on, but the city needs to accommodate people who are medically challenged, and I mean to some degree. And I was just wondering if there's some kind of provision that can be added that those people can get some additional assistance to have the adjustment done to the infrastructure of their unit, like an installation of some special type of heating or cooling system that can be installed within their unit, specifically that could be adjusted and turned on by the resident of that particular unit. That it's just an idea that we
Mhm.
could float. That's all. I was
Mhm.
just curious. Have you guys thought to that level? You know.
No, I mean, actually, no. I mean, we were thinking more big picture, as I think you like highlighted. And I mean, I will say too, just like stepping back, big picture. This is really, this bill is kind of trying to target buildings in which tenants do not have any control over their heating or cooling. So it really is these buildings where your heating and cooling is turned off once or twice a year that would be implicated by this bill if it passes. If you live in a building where you have like a thermostat in your own unit, like you have control over that year round, and then there's a requirement in the bill that the systems be maintained to provide like a comfortable temperature range year round, no matter what the weather is. I mean, like we looked to at annual temperature trends over the past 10 years when picking these dates because there are cold days on which, like even now, like during the days during which AC has to be provided. There are cold days, and like I run cold, so like when the AC's on and it's cold outside, I'm just so miserable. And so we're trying to like really target the dates to reflect, okay, when we're not just picking a date. We really did look at like 10 years of Department of Energy and Environment data to try to figure out like when do we need to actually like based on data consider changing things. And this bill also had input from the Department of Building staff who is responsible for enforcing these turnovers. And actually, their position was that they didn't want to change the dates at all because they thought that no matter what the date was, people were still going to complain. We didn't buy that. So we'll see what they say if this bill gets a hearing. But I do hear your point, Karen, about people needing accommodations, and I'm not sure that the accommodation is like a wholesale building system tear out and redo, but you're right. Like we can look at provisions to like maybe,
Add
provide
on different
like
things for those particular, like you have handicap units, you have
Mhm.
different units. And if my thing is, and I'm only assuming that is a possibility of changing infrastructure, because you may run into this particular question if people actually look at the bill and think about, well, you know what, I'm actually suffering, and I would like to have some kind of way in which someone can accommodate me. I've been in this building for forever, and I
Mhm.
want to have some help. But and I know that the voice of the for our people in our community who needs to have extra voice is what the council is doing. And I appreciate the fact that you guys are doing this. I just wanted to see whether or not there was any additional considerations for those who don't have the ability to make the changes to their units, that they can have that kind of adjustment outside of that. It was just an idea. you know I know you
Yeah, and I
guys
was
are
explaining
looking
where we
forward to
why
these.
we Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm just
and
explaining
I
some
appreciate
of that
all that
process.
research. I think the research is remarkable. I really appreciate that. I just really wanted to know if you guys ever thought about the medical community outside of for those who cannot fend for themselves.
Yeah.
And that was it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
there
And I
was a
will say,
question in the chat from Miss Courtney Stockland as well.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to say too, Karen, like I think it's an excellent point. I'm not trying to like discount or dismiss it by explaining what we have done, but if there's a hearing, I think it'd be great if you were to like attend the hearing and like raise that for the chairman so it's in the record and it is something they have to consider.
Okay, I'll be happy to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Um, Commissioner Kensack,
Yeah,
you
I
have your
love.
question.
Yeah, I love Miss Courtney, so I'll be very quick. I just wanted to say to Chairwoman Gal is that you just have to keep in mind some of these buildings that are older, if they only have a heating system like a boiler, so you're using like air conditioning, window units, whatever, you could have technically both going on. Now, if you have a dual system and you're shutting off the boiler, it's very difficult for them to manage past that certain date, for whether it be handicap or not. Now, there's things that they can be done, not really infrastructurally to the building, and I don't recommend this, but there's, like the heaters and stuff that, again, I think are fire safety hazards that, we try to keep out of corporate offices and even out of homes that are people's because they tend to catch on fire. But there's things that are out there that are safer that they can work with directly with that. So I mean, it's a great point, Chairman Gal, but also to Gabrielle's point, you can't do it with all of the build every building is when some of these older buildings do shut down the heat, and now if you're pushing till May 1st or say they can't just fire the boiler back up, come May 2nd or 10th or June, because that will actually ultimately heat up the entire building. It doesn't specify for one unit. And that's where you get into, and even if it is, like I said, a newer building, it's very difficult to do that. When you turn the heating systems off for a set time, you can't just turn them back on. So I think it would be as needed basis. And I do agree with you that people that don't have the support or need people to speak up, we they should absolutely be the council member's office should be thinking about that. But I think it'd be something that they would look at in working with the different landlords and what they can possibly get around with that are safe ways of keeping people heated or cooled, depending on what the cause may be for that individual.
Exactly. And I was thinking about the space heater fires common in Washington D.C. And especially in those buildings similar to what we're talking about. And I know that this is not one of those large commercial facility. I'm assuming that's not what she's talking about. The latest and greatest builds that they just built, where they actually have central heating and air. I'm and so the facilities manager, whomever would work these particular buildings, I really do think that there needs to be some assistance for people who um, they'll put in their leases and that you can't have a space heater, you can't have this, and you can't have a one of those air ACs that hangs outside your windows. They'll tell you that in your lease, and the people are suffering. And this is that those are the folk who I'm talking about, Commissioner Kinzick. I really think that it's really important that for people who are in in those particular mines, that there should be some type of infrastructure or something in place that they would have to build up a system or create a system that it can be used for those people. This is the reason why I asked our chief architect here on our committee, Mr. Heisley, if he could tell me if it was possible to do that. He said it would be, but it's extremely expensive, and I understand that. And I was just thinking that the cost could possibly be incurred by the city. That was just my hope and dream, and I'm going to move to Ms. Stockland. I don't have any more questions, but I thank you very much, Gabrielle, for your assistance, and thank you, Commissioner Kinzick, for your input too. Thank you very much.
Some thanks, Karen. Um, uh, I think the two questions that just came in are not related to this. Uh, Gabriel, there's one question. Gabrielle, sorry, there's one question from an audience member, or it's really a comment actually, that just says slightly updating regulatory dates to accommodate activities that are affected by climate change generally makes sense. for both comfort and efficiency reasons. And then note that perhaps uh, city-controlled mowing should be adjusted too. So not specifically related to the Cools Act, but I'm sure there's other places that would make sense to take this approach as well. So maybe that's something that we as a committee can look at.
That may be
Um,
that leaf blowing law,
yeah.
Chris. They have that
Oh
leaf
yes.
blower, the gas leaf blower thing that that you can't use the gas leaf blowers any longer. That may be associated with that.
Yes. In Alexandria, we just had quite the public hearing about gas-powered leaf blowers. It inspires, I mean, obviously Alexandria is more suburban than DC, so different demographic, I suppose you could say, but it inspired quite the comment period from the public. But um, so I guess I'm wondering if there are any other questions for Gabrielle, and if there aren't, we can move to reviewing the resolution, and then hopefully we can vote on that and bring it to the ANC. Um, so any other questions about the bill, the bill itself, for Gabrielle? Okay, I'm seeing none. I'm going to share my screen with the resolution. Gabrielle, you're welcome to stay if you would like. But I'm grateful that you were able to spend some time with us this evening.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna head out because I'm responsible for cooking dinner tonight. But
Oh, yes.
having me.
It is
And
that time of the night, isn't
I'll
it?
drop my email in the chat if anybody wants to like follow up with any other
That'd be
questions.
great. Thanks so much.
I'll do that and thank you. I'll do that.
Okay. So this is the resolution. Some of you might recognize a lot of this from the previous resolution I did. Take quite a few uh, things from the ANC 1D resolution. Um, for those of you who are looking at a resolution for the first time, essentially, the first sort of half of it is statements of um, sort of background statements, I suppose you could say. All the whereases are sort of like statements of summary of the bill and also statements of our own, of the ANC's own sort of belief about the purpose of the bill. And then there's towards the bottom the statement that we are resolving, the therefore be it resolved that Advisory Neighborhood Commission 1B supports B 26-285, the Cools Act. I think I saw someone unmute.
It was me. I was going to make the motion, but I didn't know when you were ready.
Oh,
Um,
if you'd like to, well, one thing I was, before you make the motion, Karen, I was going to suggest,
yes.
based on the comment that you just gave, Gabrielle, about the medically fragile
How about that?
community, I
Yeah,
added
I was
that
going to ask if you
language.
can add that into it.
So I added it. I'm trying to remember which paragraph I put it in. Um, da, 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 da,
Is it
da,
the health
da.
risk? Rising
Maybe.
temperatures present significant health
Yes.
risks.
I included medically fragile
Okay,
residents here.
great.
But one thing that I'm asking that I would be curious about is whether you think it would be worth adding an additional, therefore be it resolved line, asking the council member to explore uh, sort of updating the legislation with um, or like explore either updating legislation or pursuing additional legislation that addresses the comments that you were making.
I I wanted what I wanted to do was since she had made the suggestion to bring it before Chairman Mendelson, or Chairwoman Henderson. I think that it's important that we do make sure that we talk about the medically fragile people who have to really truly have this particular act.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, I didn't know if I was going to have the ability to wordsmith it tonight, but, um, but if you want me to, I can, or you can just go with what you've already added, because I think that you touched base on it. But I think that making sure that it's because there's an income deficiency for the folk who I'm also am interested in trying to advocate for here. I
Mm,
think that it's because of what Joel had mentioned during our last meeting, that it's going to be a huge burden to the landlords, which we don't want to see the landlords who may have a small building, that we don't want to see them incur a huge cost, but we also don't want to see that cost being um, thrown back to a tenant either.
right.
So
Right.
I really want to make sure that the economic challenge that would come into place would be taken care of by the city, since they're bringing this act up.
It did seem like Gabrielle was did not think there would be much of a cost, but then again, that I think she was talking generally, not a cost associated with the with medically fragile tenants.
Well, considering the information that Commissioner Kenseth brought forth,
Yeah.
and what Joel had mentioned last month, I think that it's important to note that there is going to be a cost if there has to be some adjustments for anyone who falls within the window that I'm advocating for now.
Yeah.
And I want to see funding associated with taking care of those people who may need to have those adjustments. I figure if you're considering or you're interested in their well-being, you might as well be really truly interested in their full
Right.
well-being.
So do you think it would be fair to, because I am totally fine adopting it as written unless anyone else has other changes, but I also think that like if you want, we can totally include um uh something, and I think it probably would be fine to wordsmith, like if we write out something basic right now and then we wordsmith it later. I think that's probably, and vote on the basic thing and the wordsmith version is refined for the commission. I think that's probably okay.
I think that would be great, because
Okay.
I think it needs to be um, a provision added. And since we just got, who was the new lawyer that just came on board today? Didn't we just get a new
Gabriel
committee? Was it Gabriel or was it another gentleman? I forgot the other gentleman's name. He had the nice picture, Brad.
or Gabe. Gabe, you're the lawyer, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay, Gabe, this is your time to pitch in, dear.
Gabe,
I'm gonna
Do it for
you must love
now.
that. You
This
must
is what
love
the
that. You're the
lawyers.
attorney, aren't you?
Um, okay. So what if we just say I'm gonna pretend that we don't have to write out the be resolved part. But um is the thing that you are hoping that they will do update the legislation or explore additional legislation, or should it be one or the other?
I
Or
think
should
they should update their legislation, since they already have it and they're already energized for it. They need to update their legislation, being very clear that it's also going to be supportive of those who not only are medically fragile, but they're also economically challenged in this under these particular conditions. So they have um two things that they need to be advocated for, which is the medically challenged needs to have
yeah.
special attention, as well as also making sure that the economic portions is covered through funding that would help not only the tenant but also help the landlord. So it'll be a win-win for anyone who decides to take on the project of taking care of the needs of the persons who are under the duress of the that the Cools Act is supposed to cover. So I'm hoping that's as nice as I can say it.
Um,
Okay.
But I'm not,
Yeah,
I
go
don't
ahead,
play
Gabe.
a lawyer, huh?
no, sorry, this is
Oh,
Jason. I mean,
Jason.
Can I mean, and Karen, I really appreciate that you are always looking out for people who need additional support and who other people are not thinking of. I deeply appreciate that. I guess I would respectfully disagree on this one because I feel like this is not fundamentally changing the situation. It's changing, um, it's changing the dates to reflect what's happened with global warming. So it's not meaning, less that folks like if you're already suffering from, Raynaud's or whatever else, and you um uh like I think this changeover is not going to make a difference that much one way or the other. I do like the idea of just making sure people look out for it, but I also think like I don't want to create an undue burden around this, which is, actually going to help a lot of people. And frankly, probably most people, like I have Raynaud's and like the thing you want least is like the mismatch between the heating and cooling. And so something like this act actually would help that. And I feel like burdening this act with a whole bunch of other hoops to jump through is going to make it harder for this to have impact for people who need it.
Hmm.
I I okay, and I hear you. I figured that if you're going to say that you're writing an act to help people that has an issue with their heating and cooling, and I know that the bigger picture, the global picture is the climate change, right? Okay, that's the global picture, but we're focusing on the people in DC, and we're looking at the specific people in DC and what they're going through. And so when I do look at advocating for anyone in DC, um, and and yes, if you're if you're in a place where you don't have to worry about someone controlling your heating and cooling, I swear, if you had to worry about someone being in charge of it, and they're telling you in their these particular people that run these places that has the control over the heating and cooling will tell people that they cannot have a space heater, they cannot have an AC, and
Hmm.
they're at the mercy of them. I think that these people need to have some additional advocacy. So this is the reason why I'm saying that, Jason. I'm not speaking on behalf of people who can take care of themselves and who can
Right,
purchase that space heater, who can purchase the AC, the air conditioner. These people, 9 times out of 10, they are at the mercy of whomever is in control of their heat and air. And so
right,
I that's the only reason why I said that. And I've seen this situation occur. And the reason why I used the various conditions is because those are the real conditions. Like you said, you'll have 1 out of 10 people who will have Raynaud's syndrome. You'll have 1 out of 2 people, women who will have menopause, will go through the hot flashes of menopause. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but if they're living in these conditions that they're at the mercy of someone controlling their heating and air, I think that it's important that the person who's in charge of the Health and Human Services Committee, and also who's bringing this act forward, that she should take some additional considerations. And I think that adding that provision is really, really important. That's all.
well, I just think that like this act is meant to help. Like the whole purpose for this is people are saying there's a mismatch between the current climate in DC. I'm not talking about global, climate warming issues, but like the current climate in DC and the and the heating and cooling in their building. And so like those folks who are suffering from that, this act should be helpful to those people. And I agree with the broader concerns you have around people who live around these buildings that are older buildings and don't allow people to control the AC. I am fortunate to not live in one of those buildings now. I've lived in one of those buildings in the past, and I um I totally get it. I think it's worth thinking through, what are ways to try to make that situation better. Like for example, supporting retrofitting of those buildings. But I don't think taking something that's meant to help people and that will help most of the people that you're looking to help and make that act, harder to pass and harder to implement is ultimately going to serve the goal of helping those people.
One suggestion that I have, because I think I understand what both of you are saying. I think we can in the in the resolution say we really like this as it's written, and also we think it would be great if there's some additional work either on this act or otherwise to
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of
Well,
saying like you have to change the act itself, because I could see why for instance, Councilmember Henderson might want to explore that through a subsequent piece of legislation to prevent it from complicating this legislation and give it the sort of separate attention that it needs. Um, but I also would want it to be in the resolution because it's important and we want them to know we're asking them about it.
Right. And it's just exploration. I mean, as long as it's considered and just as you heard her staff person said that they've never even thought about it. And that's why we have this beautiful committee with all these beautiful bright minds to come up with ways to advocate for our neighbors. And I think that if we always look at those who have and those who have not every time we're talking about our neighbors, because that's why this is the way DC is built. We have to look at from all levels, and everybody can't afford those space heaters. And then also, again, their hands and feet are tied. They can't even be, they're not even allowed to have it in their homes because the landlords are worried about the units catching fire. And I also understand that because people leave them on all night, or they have a shoddy space heater or a shoddy air conditioning unit, and then everybody is at risk. So that was the reason why I brought that forward.
Yeah.
But Jason, I certainly appreciate your input because I do understand. I would not want this to. I have opened my mic to support the motion for it because I really think it's a great and thoughtful opportunity. But I don't want to put any roadblocks in the way. So, but thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Okay, so Karen, I've added this component that just says explore ways, and we'll phrase it more like that the council member will explore whatever. Like, we can workshop that. But explore ways that the district government can additionally support medically fragile tenants who may need, for example, unique heating and cooling dates outside the ranges identified in the Cools Act. And and then you were also mentioning um I'll say complying with the heating and cooling regulations. Um
Regulations that is you know it's I think it has to be understood that the landlords may put those particular residents in sort of a bind.
yeah,
Again, it's really clearly note that the people may be they're at the mercy of these landlords, whether you're a college student, early college student, your young family, whatever.
yep,
You're in a bind. You can't get that space heater. You can't get that air conditioning unit, and you're suffering. And I
yep.
really want everybody to be considerate of those people. That's all.
Um okay. So this is the updated blurb. And Karen, you and I can workshop this at a later date.
Yes,
Um,
sir. I'm good with it. Would you like for me to make a motion and stop having everybody suffer from hearing this discussion?
I will quickly just ask if anyone has any other comments or questions that they want to make about this slash the updated bit. And I can't
No,
see.
no, I think we're all good. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Karen, feel free to make your motion.
Well, go back to the top paragraph so I can make it right.
Yes.
So that thank you very much, and thank you, my fellow colleagues. I would like to recommend that the full ANC support resolution, the resolution 25, okay, titled, where's the B26-285, the climatizing our overheated living spaces regulation amendment act of 2025, hereinafter referred to as cools act, which was brought forward, and with the provisions that we just added, with all the provisions that we added to this resolution. um, thank you, that's it.
Great. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Okay. Okay, everyone, all those in favor, raise your virtual hand.
I'm trying to read it. It's slow.
What did you say, Jason?
I said
Sorry.
I'm working on raising it.
Oh, no worries. Okay. Uh, wow, we are very agreeing today. All those opposed, raise your hand. I'm going to assume, okay. And then abstaining, just me. Okay, fabulous. Um, okay, moving on um to the big ticket item of the excuse me, of the night, which is uh Commissioner Barrio's um resolution. I know that Patrick, you were in the middle of mentioning a few things, and then also I know that Joel, you had some additional comments. Just because I want to just quickly return before we dive in to the idea that because I know Karen, you asked something right as we were introducing um, Gabrielle. But I do think that if you would like to email questions to Francois, to Commissioner Barrio, I'm happy that please definitely feel free to do that. I'm sure he would be happy to receive them. I do also want to just compile uh, your, I guess questions would be good for Commissioner Barrio, and then any actual statement that you have would be good for us. So I see first, Patrick, if you have anything additional that you wanted to add, and then uh, I see Frank, you have your hand up, and then I'll see Joel if you still have some stuff that you wanted to mention. And I think when we were talking, you were well, I don't remember what you were in the middle of saying, so hopefully you'll remind us.
Um, okay, so I don't know what you wrote down, so I'll just continue on, and if you need me to go back, I will. But at the end of the first page, it says, whereas a recent poll of the district residents, and once again, he's talking about allowing fourplexes. And then he goes on to say, majority of white, black, and persons of color, which is a redundancy. I don't know why. I understand what he's trying to probably say, but he's saying the same thing twice. And
Well,
then go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
Then on the next page, the second whereas, he's back on 4-unit infill conversions again. He keeps using the word infill conversions, which I don't really understand where that's coming from. It's in the next paragraph, or
Yeah, I see.
whereas again, and then in that one it says right of infill conversions of existing structures up to 6 units. So then it goes from 4 to 6. And then in the last, where it be advised, he's talking about 6 units again in the mid-city in particular.
Hmm.
And then there's also a clause somewhere in here which I can't seem to find, talking about displacement. Hmm.
It sounds like I mean, I think I have a similar question about exactly what the he means by infill conversions, but I do think this sort of answers that, and that is infill conversions of existing single-family detached structures to roadhouses, townhomes, and small homes. So I think what he's saying by infill conversions, this is my reading of it at least, is that they're infill because it's adding density on small lots, sort of typically that's how I would describe infill as. And then also conversion from single family to some other typology like a row house or
But
something like that.
I'm
But
gonna
we can
jump.
ask him for
Yeah,
clarity just because
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here because
yeah,
infill and conversions especially has a very specific
right.
meaning in zoning. And I just got
Exactly.
tied up on it in one that we went through hell and then found out that this certain regulation didn't apply because it wasn't a conversion.
yeah,
Yeah.
You have to separate those two. It's either an
that's
infill or you're
exactly what I'm
allowing
thinking.
conversions. There is no, you can't combine this two.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think he's using this as a term of art. I think he's using it as a
But he can't
descriptor.
use it like that because
Right.
he has to find something else to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the difference between light or gentle density versus light touch density, which is I think I mentioned this to him the first time he came to the commission that gentle density is really the thing that the word phrase that most planners I know would use, and light touch density is not. But
Mhm.
you're talking about something that's a little bit more meaningful in the sense that conversions are
There is a specific
right,
meaning for conversions. Yeah.
like in it, like zoning wise, and so
Yes.
we should be
Yeah,
careful about using that.
that's taking a building and converting it
Right.
to something. He's talking
Yeah.
about building new
Yeah.
buildings and an
In,
infill under
infill
the
is a construction thing. Conversion is a use.
Right.
right. And infill really means putting two things together and filling in the gap.
Yeah.
I have to call you
Um,
in a minute.
Frank, do you have something that sorry, I realized we dove right into that conversation.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the difference between, I guess this is version 4, right, of this
At
resolution.
least. Yeah.
Yeah, and so just following the conversation from the beginning, at least there's a provision now regarding historic preservation
Yeah.
and maintaining a deference to it. I don't believe we've done enough here because I'm not sure how many row house owners and or residents are on this panel, but I just think it's quite sort of aggressive to place 6 units by right next to a single family um, uh, infill. I think the conversation with respect to what home ownership brings versus what renters bring. And there's something that hasn't been said about, just trying to bring in more units and whether they are owned or rented. And I think, even though, I mean, maybe half the panel, maybe 3/4 of this panel is renters, but renters come and go. Whereas, is there a difference in quality with neighborhoods if you have just a renting neighborhood and you have just an owner neighborhood? I'm just asking about this because I know I'm probably in over my head here with this question, but let me tell you, the people that contribute to my neighborhood, often have been here for a lot of years, and it's harder to get new people. So, there has to be something in the discussion about maintaining the longevity of neighborhoods versus just making rental neighborhoods. And I don't see that. So that's an aside as my second point. But my
Yeah,
first
I mean,
my first point is regarding the deference to the historic basis that this beautiful city has been based on, and not enough deference to all of a sudden cutting a historic row home into 6 units. And that number has changed within this resolution. It started 6 to 8. And now I think Patrick's raised the confusion. Is it now 4 to 6? And I think that needs to be further clarified and established, because I think it's very difficult to all of a sudden add 5 extra units to a house, to a neighborhood that is fully attached row homes that have attracted families that live here and contribute, versus um, small, studios where people aren't going to stay there very long. And so I just think more conversation needs to be had and elucidation on the matter of um, um, the number of units in the historic district and an ode to historic district code versus like the one provision that was added here. I think you brought it up.
Um,
Historic preservation review will continue to apply to all proposed construction in historic districts.
yeah, this one.
Yeah, it just seems pretty little and pretty late, and a mild deference to a deep, important component of downtown Washington. And so I just find it needs to be expanded a little bit with a little more articulation on, like, should they be all studios in the 6 units? You know, in for this, and I guess it would be a conversion. This would be a true conversion from a one family to 6 studios. Is there a difference? And we're not protecting the what I want to say. We're not protecting family units, which seems to be elucidated in the beginning, in the preamble. One of the
Well,
reasons
it's not.
we're not
I
getting
guess.
we're not preserving family units, and so I think that could be made part of the ode to conversions of attached historic row homes in some way. Because if we're adding density of people, perhaps we should be giving an ode to some type of family preservation within this density allowance we're allowing in
Um,
historic row homes. So I've said a few things here.
yeah. Can I ask really
Right.
quickly, because you also mentioned the thing about the 4 units? I am not seeing where that's in the therefore. Am I just missing this? Um,
I'm
it
sorry.
reads to
I was just deferring to Patrick because
yeah,
I
yeah.
okay,
Because
okay.
it
Well,
reads to me like there's multiplexes up to 6 units. I don't see anything in the therefore be it resolved section that is referencing 4 units. And so my read on this is that it's up to 6 units, and that there's not a part of it that is 4 units.
so I
It's
guess I
not,
just
it's not in therefore resolved, but he mentions it for 2 or 3 times in the whereases. I pointed that out where
Yeah,
he
he
talks
Okay.
says
about
fourplexes in the
four
whereas.
plexes and 4 units, and then down in the where to be it resolved, he jumps it up to 6.
Yes, I see what
Is
you're
it a
saying. I
type?
mean,
You think it was a typo since he was making adjustments, or
well,
I
I
don't want to
think
speak out of turn here, but I think
go
it's
ahead, go
based
ahead.
on the sources he's using. Like if you click on
Right. That's what I was
Yeah.
uh,
thinking.
the poll is asking about fourplexes. Like the poll does not ask about 6 units by right. So,
Yeah,
I
I
think it's just
agree.
based on,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's citation for ggwash.org is a reference to the 63% of district residents excuse me, allowing fourplexes in areas currently zoned. He's not specifically, like, the whereas there is not referencing his motion. He's referencing research.
Okay, that's what I thought. Why don't we? I see. Frank, did you have anything else to add, or do you still have a? Should
No,
Laura-
I'll submit some comments in
Okay.
writing, but I just believe there was a lot of discussion last meeting about the lack of historic preservation respect, and I'm not sure this one provision maintains or improves that. situation.
And your dog has lots of thoughts too, apparently.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Yanni, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks,
Can
Christian.
I jump back into where my place in line was?
Um, oh yes, Joel, I didn't have your. Well, let's start with Nanya and then we'll go to you. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Christian. I really wanted to offer a different perspective from what Frank has mentioned, and I think that it's really important to mention that I think one of the purposes of Commissioner Barelow's proposal here is about housing prices, lowering the cost of housing. I think that what's really important is that I own my home myself, but I think that renters are very important in a neighborhood. I think renters get just as much of a say in the vote as, I do as a homeowner. And I think that when it comes to the character of a neighborhood, whether or not they would want to be renters or not, I think most renters would very much prefer to be able to own their own house. And I think this proposal by Commissioner Barilot is really trying to get at that. He's trying to open up more housing, make it so that it is cheaper for people to buy housing, especially cheaper to have these smaller units. He's saying infill and he is talking about conversions. He's converting potentially some household that a large row home that could have 6 bedrooms into, say, 2 units of 3 bedrooms in which a young family could be there, or 3 units of 2 bedrooms each in which a young couple like myself and my partner could live in. I think it's really important that he is, talking about this, and I think it's unfair to say that renters are, not contributing to a neighborhood, because in many cases, these renters are living in expensive places. They would like to settle down in this place and provide value, but they are not doing so. And this is kind of one aspect of doing so. And then in regards to the historical preservation piece, I do think that there is definitely a time and a place for historical preservation. But as we've seen from, many places, including in DC, a lot of times the historic preservation process is either used just to slow down projects, or as we've seen even here in DC, in some neighborhoods in, far northwest, they've been used to kind of perpetuate essentially what was, racist redlining in the past, and wanting to keep that historic neighborhood because of these reasons. So I just wanted to offer a different perspective than the one that Frank said.
Awesome. Thanks, Johnny. I'll go to Joel next, since I neglected, and then we'll return to the line as hands are raised. Sorry about that, Joel. Thanks for your patience.
I mean, most of it is just, certain wording and things. It's the whole thing. Infill conversions has got to be changed. The other thing he has, like just in the first, therefore, he has small homes. And you can't just say, you've got to define what you mean by small homes. Because that's too vague. No matter how, if this is supposed to be general, it's still, the same thing, especially when you're talking about going up to 6 units, which I think is another thing. He's broad, but he's getting very specific in some things, which, it's up to 6 units in residential zones. Well, there's several different residential zones. I'm not going to try to remember exactly how many right now. But yeah, some 6 units would be fine. Others 6 units would be so out of place. And, he's mixing the broad brush with specifics, which is, again, it's this conceptual flaw, I think. One other thing here that I guess it's in the second, third bullet point. It's the top of the page 3. Unlike Mid City, where ANC is, delete that. That's just too self-serving. And this is supposed to be for a general audience. let's not, kind of pat ourselves in the back for being martyrs of having a lot of low income housing in the area. Um, the accessory dwelling
I
units,
see.
I think the owner occupation requirements are going to be a big issue, because it goes to character of neighborhoods, um, besides density. And then the others I just have are again infill conversion, small scale. But then the very last bullet point here, he's been going on about very specifics, and then at the end he kind of goes with a principled stand of something that doesn't belong in this list of things. That belongs up either up in the whereases or something like that.
That's a good point.
It's really out of place down there.
Awesome.
That's all. I mean, I
Cool.
finally made these same comments.
Yes, please
I'll
do
forward the
send me.
document that has my comments in it. But
Awesome.
and I don't know how to address where he's being specific and broad at the same point, but not resolving either one. Like I said, that's a conceptual detail that needs detail, a conceptual issue that needs to be thought through more thoroughly than I'm able to do right now here. That's all.
Thanks, Joel. Devin.
Yeah, thank you. So, while I agree that there are elements of this that can be tightened up, as an expression of sentiment, I do agree with pretty much everything that's being said here. 6 units is a high number when we're talking about an individual row house, but this doesn't necessarily supersede existing rules around it. I also think the idea that this is primarily oriented towards renters only presupposes that the new units constructed are rentals. Right now, when we look at Zillow, you see that a like 1 bedroom apartment in ANC one is $500,000 thereabouts. There are some that are lower and more early pre-war buildings and things like that, but it's quite expensive. The most effective way to get more people to buy into the well-being of the city is to have more widely available and more affordable housing stock. And I think that this is a reasonable measure to take towards that. Like it says in the resolution, there are certainly other things that come before this when it comes to approving new housing. But let's not forget that earlier tonight, we all unanimously approved a conversion from a single family row home to 2 units, each unit having 4 beds. Yeah, I think I would have actually approved that motion if it was into 3 units with each of whatever. Like, I think this is a pretty fair direction to have.
Thanks, Devin. Gabe.
Hey, yeah. First of all, I guess just want to echo a lot of what Yanni said about, renters and the role of renters in the community. I would also say, to add to that, um, I think there's some cause and effect here that we need to tease out about, why renters might be leaving neighborhoods, in higher rates. Part of it might be commitment to the neighborhood, but part of it might be that their rent is rising. And, you know, if your rent rises 10% by year, you're probably gonna have to move somewhere else at some point. And I think that's been the story in this area in buildings that are not receiving some form of public subsidy. So, I as a renter feel, committed to this place, but, if my landlord raises my rent, I'll move somewhere farther out or something probably. Um, I would also just add on the balance between sort of historic preservation and the need for more housing. I just want to point out that the 6 unit by right option is only available in districts that do not meet their affordable housing goals otherwise. And I think that's a pretty key distinction when it comes to sort of balancing these competing needs in some ways between affordability and historic preservation. And that, if you are building housing as a neighborhood, you're not going to be penalized in this way. And if you are building housing, then it's row homes by right, which I think does really fit sort of the historic landscape of this area. So, I think I would characterize the balance present in this resolution between historic preservation and new housing, a little differently. And to me, it seems appropriate just given the scale of kind of the housing and affordability crisis. Um, yeah, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. Commissioner Kensek, you
Yeah,
are next.
I'll make this brief because this is getting a little long. But the what I will say is when Commissioner Barrow called me directly in regards to adopting this, and I had some concerns, some questions. I am a renter. I've rented in the same place for over 10 years. I prefer to be a renter, to make it clear. It's not that I can't buy a house. I like renting. I don't like to be stuck in any area, nor do I want other people living in my home. If I go to leave it and I have to have them rent out, I don't want to deal with all that. So some people really don't want to live or own in a place, but I do love living in this area, and I love living on 16th Street, and I will plan on living here until I decide to leave, maybe to go back to New York City. Who knows? But with that said, what Commissioner Barrow's drive here is, and again, there is some flaws with it, and I've explained that to him. But the is just what a lot of these committee members are saying is to get more people affordable housing. Again, how he made it and how he sold it to me, or proposed it to me, I should say, was that it was more for based on renters. It was based on using current row houses to make adequate to six, or four. He really kept using the word six. It wasn't four, wasn't it was six, but I understand there's different size row houses. I think some of the spirit and drive and the intention is really good, but there are some infrastructural things that we have to just keep in mind. Again, and I brought it up to him and I brought it up on the last commissioner call, is that the infrastructure of a lot of these buildings, houses, row houses, and even DC in general, entire DC, the lines are, sewer lines are disgusting. Well, not all of them are, but meaning they're just in rotten shape. They are slowly rolling out, but DC's slowly rolling out everything as they've done in my 10 years of living here. And the problem with that is when you start adopting all these six individuals into one house, when you typically have maybe a family of one, and then a couple of family members, you start having, maybe a couple here and a couple there. And it sounds great in theory, and it's great to welcome new people in the neighborhood, renters or buyers, whatever. But just have to keep in mind the infrastructure and how waste and every sediment that's going to water, all that getting in and out of the property. Again, where that bottom line comes down to, and that is all of us on this call, which is the DC taxpayers. So, those are some things that I think have to be thought out here thoroughly. I understand where Commissioner Chauvin is coming from when with his comments, but I also understand where Mr. Honk's coming from as well. I mean, I do think that he means it with all good intentions. His, again, how he explained it and laid it out, and I did say I would support in the fact that I do always embrace having low income housing or even extremely lower income housing for people to be able to live anywhere they want in DC, including Ward 1 through 8. But if they specifically want to live in Ward 1, they should have the ability to do so. But I just want to make clear for the call that from what he had called me and then sent me an email after our call in writing and what we discussed, it was laid out as such that it was going to be predominantly for renters. It would be make some of these homes that are either abandoned or currently under occupied, whatever it may be, make them into having them be like six family units, which means each family could have anywhere from one single person to however big a family is. So just want to clear that up for the call. So I know we're having a lot of comments back and forth here, but that's where Commissioner Barrio had told me he was going with this. But I still think there's a lot of thought process that still needs to be involved with this.
Thanks, Commissioner Kensek. Okay, we have two um, folks in our audience who have raised their hand. And I know Chris O submitted some questions to the Q&A. I'm not sure the questions are necessarily for us, but hopefully you will tell us, Chris. So I'm going to start with Courtney, and then we'll go to Chris. So Courtney, you
Hi
should be
there.
good to go. Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Chair. I and I can turn on my video if you want, but actually I'm
Uh,
not sure how to do that. In any
I
case,
don't think you can as a
okay.
attendee actually, but
Thanks.
so that's okay.
Chairman and committee, I live on Seton Street, which is right by that row house that you discussed earlier in the meeting. I thought that you all had really helpful and smart questions to the applicant, and that you asked him about the rest of his process as well, super wise. Do you have any criticisms about that current process? Because if not, and if you think that all of those steps are important, in terms of engaging with neighbors and that sort of thing, and you even made comments about how it made sense to, not totally bump up that back bump out to the full four stories. Anyways, just think through that, because that was really important input that you all had. Not sure why we would change the process necessarily. Couple other things, as maybe several of you are, I don't know, maybe that's a question. Is anybody on the committee tied to Greater Washington in any way, unofficially or officially?
I don't think so. I mean, I get their newsletter, but
Yeah.
that's about as
So
close as.
as you know, then, Chairman, that's of course a developer-backed so-called nonprofit. They are an advocacy group, a lobbyist group, but they are backed by developers. So just please be aware when you quote or cite a source from them that, sure, it's research, the poll that you touted, but that may or may not be an objective data point. Okay. A couple other things that I find really interesting when we have all of these conversations about affordable housing. The only thing that is ever discussed that I've heard in the last couple of years in particular is to increase the supply. There are so many other things that go into housing being affordable, such as real estate taxes, right? I never hear a discussion about, hey, maybe the tax department shouldn't be coming out and, raising commercial real estate taxes, for example, which of course a lot of rental apartments are within commercial buildings. Some of these assessments in my neighborhood, I understand, have jumped something like $800,000 on specific small buildings, which is mind blowing. I'm not sure how that's even legal. And then personal real estate taxes as well. So keep that in mind, because those, of course, are passed on to the renter. And then the other thing I never really hear discussed is, housing's more affordable when you're making more money. So job concerns, wage concerns. So that's why I sort of end up seeing some of these discussions about build, baby, build, and that's going to solve all of our affordable housing concerns. I don't totally buy it, because I'm not sure it's totally worked, even in our ward that's, accomplished a great, surpassed our goal by, I think, 75%, at least at this point. But something's not adding up here. And so it sniffs out to me that this is simply another developer-backed kind of money grab, and a push to have this unfettered capitalist approach to development in our city. And that also ends up making our city, it homogenizes things. And I'm not sure that's really what folks want to be doing. These neat little neighborhoods that are throughout the city, I think people have pride in them. And that's not about keeping people out. That's just about having pride in your neighborhood and not pushing folks out because you are enabling the rules that benefit the developers mostly, so they can be buying people out of these houses that were previously affordable to them. So just a few comments, and I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. Um, I definitely think those are comments that would be great to provide at the ANC meeting when this is in front of the commission, which I'm assuming is in December. But that will be part of course, uh, um,
Yeah.
the agenda, obviously.
I think for this proposal to think that it's like ready for prime time in that way is a stretch, but that's just from my own reading. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean we're not voting on it today, so we're just compiling our comments. So uh, my understanding at least is that Commissioner Barrio wants it to be in December. So who knows if that will actually be the case. I am going to go to Chris. Oh, and I know that you added some questions to the chat for us, or sorry, to the Q&A for us to consider. Um, Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me? Whoa.
We can hear you, but you have a really significant echo.
Hold on a sec. Sorry about that. Is that any better?
Yeah, I think it's better for sure.
All right, we're in
Hey,
C.
Chris, real quick, if you have like a phone or something else that's in your background or a TV or something, that's what the echo is happening. So that's what we hear
Okay.
in the background after you speak. So I don't know if you have one of those on, you might want to either mute it or lower it.
Okay. Let me try to do that. So, is that better?
That is better, yes.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Sorry
Awesome.
about that. Just real quick on this, I do caution us thinking about a vote on this in December, and I'll elucidate why. I mean, the questions I put in the Q&A, I sent to Commissioner Barlow like 11 days ago, and they've not been responded. So this is the proposer, and I'm just trying to they're just informational questions that I think would help with the dialogue, and I couldn't get answers. I still don't have answers to them. So those are some questions maybe to include in the list. But for what's on the table tonight, I guess I wanted to start by acknowledging that the stated intent behind this proposal is certainly a goal that we all share. We want to increase affordable family size housing in DC. But personally, I don't believe this proposal will achieve that. In fact, it may actually undermine it because the core principle at stake here is eliminating community input by making this entire development vision by right. That means no more community dialogue on how our neighborhoods evolve, like we had like on Ontario Road, where you can see right now if you walk up from Florida. All of that is perfectly legal. It's exactly the type of developments we're talking about here, but it went through a BZA review with ANC 1C. And so there was a discussion about actual impacts on adjacent neighbors so they can squeeze this stuff in and do it a bit more responsibly. So without a community dialogue process, which is by right, we can ensure that tear downs or small apartment rebuilds will just happen willy-nilly by for-profit forces without a care for the public interest we're all trying to get at, which is affordable family size housing.
Okay.
Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah,
Yes,
Jason,
sorry.
Jason.
Jason accidentally unmuted. Go ahead.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no worries. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is like the by right deregulation principle would apply, according to this proposal, to all residential districts citywide, not just single family zones, which I can understand where the commission is coming from at that, but it opens the door to demolishing the very row home communities that the proposal claims to value, because it's all residential districts. And it would set up a principle that Ward 1 should endure years of upheaval without any tools to secure the outcomes we're all trying to seek here. Cambridge, Mass. Deregulated in a way proposed here recently, but with a key caveat that I hope this ANC would consider in this conversation, and I can't seem to garner with Commissioner Barlow, that the extra density gained by right is dedicated to a affordable family size housing, period. That's what they did there. So right now, we have examples on Champlain Street showing how the administrative review process actually helped the community demand in return for what the developer wanted to do there, like at the old Brass Knob building, for example. We won more family size affordable units out of that conversation before the BZA. That would be completely eliminated under this proposal. And we have no guarantee then of the things we want to get at here. Only an hour ago, I received the draft resolution with the footnoted studies. I've been asking for all of those footnotes for like 2 weeks now, since the last ANC meeting. I cursorily looked at it tonight before this meeting, and even in just a brief review, I gotta say, a lot of these studies are outdated and they're flawed, including the Pew study, which is tied to a real page, which is tied to Real Page. It's a company real estate company currently being sued by the Department of Justice and the DC Attorney General for price fixing, helping these real estate companies price fix. Anyway, several other sources come from organizations that heavily favor deregulation, but don't ever do a class or race impact analysis on that proposal. And so, given all this, I don't believe the committee or the commission should vote in December as Commissioner Baraloo has requested. There are too many unanswered questions. There's lots of unengaged residents, and it has broad political and policy impact and harm potential that of a pretty big scale. I know we want better housing outcomes, but we need much better engagement on this and sources the public can trust. And taking the necessary time now will leave us far better position to take a stake, take a stand on this as we move forward.
Thanks, Chris. Um, Karen, you have your hand up.
Well, I'm actually really happy to hear from both Chris and Courtney Stockton, Chris O and Courtney Stockton, on making sure that their diligence in doing some deep dive research on the root understandings or the intentions behind some of the back companies, the developer back companies, or the outdated research. I think it's really, really important. It's really good. It's a quality minded discussion that we can have, and I think that it's really important that we, along with all of the different takes in regards to the covenant restrictions and the redlining that was mentioned earlier, that we really do need to take in consideration. Those are things that immediately most people know that would really grab the attention of people who are looking at affordable housing. But to understand the underlying goals of some of the folk who know the sentiments of the community but still want to use other tactics to go about getting their the delivery of their products is really, really important. So I do want to commend our community members, Mr. Chris Otten. Is it O or Otten? I saw in your email Otten or something like that. And Miss Courtney Snowden for doing everything that you all did, because that's appreciated. And I definitely have to say that having our committee members, this is such a refreshing understanding to have them stand up against the red line and the racial covenants that the city has suffered from with their dark history. And so I really do I just wanted to say that on record. But thank you very much, Christian. That's all.
Thanks, Karen. Um, so like I mentioned earlier, I think that my the approach that we'll be taking is that if you to have the chance to review these comments and also review the resolution, if you send me your comments, I will compile them into a document that we'll submit um, to the ANC. And just to be clear, it'll just become like a document that's your comments unedited. So keep that in mind while you're writing them. I'm not going to be compiling them into or doing any sort of finessing of the comments. Um, uh, yeah. So I will compile those, and then hopefully, if you send me them by um, next Monday, a week from now, I'll compile them and get them to the commission in order to have them part of the agenda on the 4th. I will, yes, Frank.
Yeah, I'd like Chris O's comments to be adopted. If you would cut and paste those for
I
submission.
think my preference is to have the comments that we submit come from the committee.
Great.
But I'm happy, and
Then
so
we'll figure out how to. I'll figure out how to get that done. Then I
yeah,
appreciate it.
I don't want to I'm not interested, I guess, in including comments from community members in this document, but I'm happy to bring Chris's comments to Commissioner Barlow's attention, since I know one of the things you mentioned, Chris, is that you'd sent him some comments and he didn't respond. And then, of course, I very much encourage both Chris and Courtney to say these things in front of the commission because that's kind of an important part of this. Um,
Frank,
uh,
of the things that Chris brought up, because I read his comments in the Q&A, almost all of what he pointed out were things that either myself or
yes,
Bill talked about. So it was discussed,
I'm
but you could
I'm
certainly add them in if you want to add them in comments. I purposely took the time to read Chris's stuff because I know where he's coming from, and like I said, I had already mentioned a lot of them.
yeah, they're definitely covered.
Right.
Um, but I think for now, comments to I guess Chris, your question, what emails should we send stuff to? That's a really good question. I actually think that maybe you should send them. My recommendation is if they're comments related to the um and other people can who've been here for longer than me can correct me if I'm wrong. But my recommendation to you is that comments that you have for Commissioner sorry, Barrio on his resolution, I would recommend that you email his email, which I think you should double check this, but I think that it's ANC 1B02. And I would also include the general ANC office email, which is on the website as well, just so that because they will be helpful in compiling stuff and bringing that to his attention as well. Um, oh yes, I'm sorry, Eric. I will do that in just a second. I think I have to click. It might take me a little bit to go through this, but I'll make the big ones that Chris submitted public. Sorry, thank you for pointing that out. Eric just mentioned that the Q&A is not visible to attendees, so I just made them visible. Um, uh, so I think that's my recommendation for you, Chris. Um, for this purposes, I want to make sure that we're just doing ZPD committee. The letter will be just documenting ZPD committee feedback, and so I would request that members of the public, like Chris or Courtney, who have additional feedback, that you submit that in the method that I just mentioned. But also, I think it's really useful if you are able to come to the commission meeting and say it at the commission meeting. I understand that's quite a commitment because sometimes these commission meetings, especially recently with all of the alcohol permit stuff, have gone on for quite a while. So I understand what that request is asking of you, but I think that is really the sort of most appropriate venue instead of including uh, comments in the letter. What I can do is include these comments in our meeting minutes. Just because we don't usually actually get very many comments during from in the Q&A, but I'm happy to include them in our meeting minutes as a part of that discussion. Okay, so unless anyone has any other questions,
Well,
I
Christian,
think yes,
I'm
Karen.
sorry, I didn't read the question and answer, but I was referring to the actual verbal statement made by both of
Yes,
the community members when I was talking. So the question and answer one was not what I was referring to, just for the record.
cool.
Okay,
Thank you for the clarification.
thank you.
Um, okay, I think robust discussion. Thank you all. This is obviously a very complicated topic. Um, I think I've shared my thoughts on this proposal previously, so I don't need to do that now. But uh, if you are able to get me your feedback in by this time next week, that would be great. And then I'll submit that into the official sort of documents for the next ANC meeting. Any last questions relating to the resolution from Commissioner Barrio? Okay. I know that it's almost 9 o'clock. I do have one teeny little thing just to quickly update people on, and I'm going to keep it very quick. I talked last time about a joint slash special task force on the comprehensive plan. And I know that at least one of you is interested in this. We are, I think, going to move forward with the joint task force for the comprehensive plan. But I think the commission is also interested in, this came out of this conversation, interested in exploring a special committee on housing. We've gotten a lot of housing related questions and issues come before this committee and other committees recently, and there's not a sort of specific place where housing conversations live. Um, and so the special committee will be exploring how to incorporate that into the commission's committees. Um, I will share more information about the joint task force when we have defined when it will start, which I don't think has happened yet. I'm a little bit behind on my emails. But if you are interested in participating on the joint task force as an ZPD on the comprehensive plan, as a ZPD representative, just let me know. I know, Devin, you've already reached out to me about this, but if anybody else is interested, let me know and I will make sure to include you in those conversations. And then my expectation is that that task force, which will be sort of time limited, will report back to the ZPD over the course of the task force life about what kind of like coordination we're trying to do across the various committees and how they intersect with the comp plan work. Karen, you had a.
Well, I just made a comment. I'm highly interested as well, just so
Oh,
that
great.
it's on the record. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Um, okay, and you're doing double duty because you're also on economic development, and I know you guys in economic development are talking a lot about the comp plan as well.
Yeah, that's the reason why I was highly
Yeah.
interested.
Okay, so I'll make sure to have information about that when we sort of have more of a structure identified. We're just moving a little slow. Um, so I think that's it. I do not have any new business. Are there other committee members who have new business? Okay, I'm not hearing any new business. Um, all right. Thank you all. Thank you to those members of the community who joined us today. Appreciate all of your time. And uh, I will be in touch with more updates. Send me your comments. And otherwise, have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kristen. No.